Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
Well, good morning, everybody. It is 7:07 on News Talk 105.9 WMAL. We are making sense of the news. A happy Wednesday morning to all of you. Yes, 5 shopping days left in this Christmas season. 5 days till Christmas. Julie Gunlock, you're done with all of your shopping. You're done with your wrapping.
I'm not just done with my shopping. I'm done with my wrapping. Mm-hmm.
There you go. That's good. I didn't know. You know, you're the rapper. I'm the DJ. This is good. Anyway, that's Julie Gunlock. I'm Andrew Langer. This is O'Connor and Company. Larry returns tomorrow. Got a great stuff coming up on the show. Karin Lip's going to join us later this hour. Author of the book "You're Not Alone: The Conservative Woman's Guide to College." We got Gordon Chang to talk about the Jimmy Lai trial. We're going to circle back on the Colorado move. 4 Democrats in the Colorado Supreme Court move to kick Donald Trump off the ballot there in just an astounding thing. So Hans von Spakovsky is going to join us. Joining us right now is Marc Morano. He is with Climate Depot. And Mark, you know, lots of stories on this. The American Gas Association is challenging the Biden final rule on gas stoves and gas furnaces. But they think we're stupid. They think that we're not going to realize that they're doing an end run around democracy and all of this implementation. Let's talk about this. What all is the Biden administration doing to narrow your choices, increase their power, and make us all a little poorer as we go into this Christmas season?
Wow. Okay. Well, just think back. First of all, the whole world changed, and particularly the climate energy world, in March of 2020 with the COVID lockdowns, because that's when John Kerry said, COVID and climate, the parallels are screaming at us. Yeah, they were, especially the solutions, because in March of 2020, we didn't vote to have churches closed, schools closed, businesses closed, weddings and funerals canceled, medical procedures canceled. We didn't vote for vaccine mandates, mask mandates. It was all imposed upon us by our betters for our own good.
Right.
So that same model, when Biden came in, that was their model. I mean, so they've done everything now. In terms of gas-powered cars, they have banned gas-powered cars without a vote of Congress. There was never legislation. Even in California, the California legislator didn't vote on this. This is being imposed upon us. John Kerry has announced they're going after American meat production and high-yield agriculture. Again, no vote of Congress. They're going after methane emissions. There's an article, by the way, they're going after human breath and a peer-reviewed study saying human breath contributes. So they're going after breeding. So they're going after pizza ovens in New York, wood stove pizza ovens and coal pizza ovens to the regulatory agency. So if you like your century-old family-run pizzerias that have been around, they're about to go bye-bye according to, you know, and that's not Biden, but that's the local New York city ordinances. But when it comes down to everything from the Biden administration going after gas stoves, they have the federal rules now coming out for the gas-powered landscaping equipment, from leaf blowers to lawn mowers. There's now even some states have jail time. So all of these decisions, they're just bypassing democracy, and this is the way they're getting it imposed through the executive branch, not legislature.
But Mark, it even goes further than that, because, for instance, this sort of jihad against gas stoves is all because an organization that is dedicated, a nonprofit, an NGO that is dedicated to eradicating the gas industry in America, produced a report that said that gas stoves are responsible for kids getting asthma. It's a joke of a report. It's crap science. And yet this study, again, produced by this activist organization, really got this administration to move on this. Isn't that true? So it's these activist organizations that are wielding all this power from an administration that's willing to take orders from them.
Absolutely. And this is, you know, they prop up these fake reports. The report you're referring to came out, I believe it was early last summer or even last spring. And I remember the analysis against it. We had scientists looking at it saying, you have candles that give out more emissions than gas stoves. You have cooking oils that give out more. If you're actually worried about a kid with asthma, which is what this is claiming, in addition to global warming, you would worry about all the cooking oils, candles. Is that going to be next? I don't know. If they're talking about human breathing contributing, it may be next. But this is all part, too, of this environment, social governance, and you have a lot of these great attorney generals leading the way, fighting this. And what this is, John Kerry's behind this and BlackRock's behind it. They use these kind of reports, and they use the administrative state. Again, no democracy need apply. And they use the financial institutions to impose an agenda. So they'll start going after now. They're going to defund. We have a corporate bank in Australia saying they're not going to give out car loans to anyone who buys a gas-powered car. And you're going to do the same thing through ESG. They're not going to fund these gas-powered. They're not going to fund any gas stoves. They're not going to fund all the energy projects. And not only will they not fund it based on climate, but if you're not particularly woke, or you don't have the transgender, and you don't have followed up on all the latest virtue signaling ideologies, then you're not going to get funded either. This is the way they're controlling our lives and our economy without us having any direct say.
Well, this is what we're getting into, right? Which is, Wayne Cruz at CEI calls it the whole of government approach, which is where you get really creative in how you push these things. It's not just the EPA or the Interior Department or the Energy Department, but you go through places like the SEC. But even outside of government, Mark, you underscore something really pernicious and horrible, right? We saw this with Operation Choke Point, which is where the federal government put pressure on financial services organizations to go after industries that they didn't like. This is a really dangerous situation, right? If all of a sudden some American auto loan company, finance company, they're getting pressured by a Biden administration Part 2 or the Warren administration or wherever to say, okay, we're going to now grade you on how you give out these loans. So in order to meet these mandated demands for buying electric vehicles, well, they're going to make it impossible for you to buy something that is. By the way, also, Mark, add to this impacts the poor, right? The poor are the ones who suffer under this because they can't get the financing. The rich people, well, they'll always get the financing for this. Talk about the dangers of this stuff being pushed out into the financial services world, and how that's another back end run approach to all of this.
Well, it's a huge way of doing it. Well, first of all, you have the central bank digital currency, which the Biden administration last year did an executive order to study. They're pushing that. Europe's pushing it. And they actually say the central bank digital currency, according to the Bank of England, as reported by the UK Telegraph, it will deem you can only spend money on what the government deems sensible. And that's not going to include red meat, gas-powered cars, energy for your home if you exceed certain amounts. And that would so they're coming after us from that angle. And when you're dealing with the financial world like this is a way. This is what BlackRock CEO Larry Fink actually stated publicly, that we have to use coercion to get people to go along, and it's financial coercion. So you're not going to get that loan. You're not going to get those favorable terms. You're not. There's actually, I can't remember which card it was, but one of them is not allowing people to buy firearms because they're against that concept. You had Nigel Farage in England be debanked by one of the largest banks in England and according to the Freedom of Information Act, because he was a climate denier, according to his bank, and he was a reputational risk.
Mark, can you hang out for a minute? Because I want to ask you about we're approaching winter time. I want to talk to you about how this electric vehicle mandate impacts folks who want to drive. Maybe want to drive when it's cold. Well, good. Well, so we'll continue talking to Mark, but in just a moment. But first, it's 7:15 a.m.
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live
from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Traffic and weather brought to you by Hadid Carpet Cleaning.
Listen, we're talking with Marc Morano from Climate Depot. And it's one of these things that as I talk to folks about electric vehicles, Mark, they're like, oh, what do you have against electric vehicles? Oh, how about maybe they don't work well in winter? And if you live anywhere other than a temperate climate place, they don't work so well either. The Biden administration wants people to use green transportation. So when all those Interior Department officials or USDA officials go up to Alaska, they're, I guess, supposed to use green Jeeps, which, again, may not work in winter. Let's talk about the problems of going all electric in America.
Well, the first thing I want to say about this is if you thought you had a better product, like an EV, you wouldn't have to outlaw the competition. So right off the bat, they're conning us. Because if they thought EVs were so fantastic with great range and made so much sense, and Americans would clamor, only 6% of us are buying them, you would not outlaw and ban gas-powered cars. By the way, without a vote of democracy. And so what happens is you have all these EVs, and they'll give you these rated. I think, well, they're about the same as a gas-powered car. Yeah, until you're in cold weather, until you're using the heater in the car and other drains on the battery, and until the battery starts getting a couple years old, just like any home appliance. I mean, you can have your cell phone. They tell you not to charge it more than 85% in order to protect the battery. But if you're only going to keep the cell phone a year, hey, you're fine with that. But you go longer, your battery starts getting affected. And when you replace the battery on these things, you're basically replacing the car. You could have $25,000, $30,000 bills on even the cheaper EVs, and people show up with these receipts. So it's like buying a high-end consumer product at Best Buy, and it's not the same investment as buying a gas-powered car because they don't last.
And not for nothing, but when you heat on a cold day, your car heats up. When the engine heats up, the air passes over the engine, and that's how your car starts to get cold. If you have an engine that doesn't, isn't internal combustion, and it's not generating heat. Like, I guess, I don't know. Maybe I don't know enough about EVs, but I don't think there's any heat generated by the motors in them, right? Because that would cause a fire, and that would be a problem. You're as you point out, you're draining the battery in order to heat the car. I don't even know how electric vehicles heat themselves.
It's a battery. It's an electric heat that they'll run the heater off of that, but it's just another drain on the system.
Right,
just
exactly.
Like your radio. Unlike a gas-powered car, it's going to use the motor and everything. You're not gonna be draining your car battery unless you have the car off.
Right.
And so, but the stats are when temperature gets below 40 degrees, you're going to lose up to 40% efficiency on these batteries. And 40 degrees isn't that cold, especially if you're talking the mid part of the country or the high Rockies or anywhere else that really gets cold. So this is a virtue signal car. It's not ready for prime time. I'm sorry, but people who buy this, it makes sense. It's usually their second, third car, or it's someone who just does short commuting. We had the spectacle last summer of Pete Buttigieg and Jennifer Granholm, the Biden administration officials, not be able to find recharging centers. They were humiliated. And, of course, all the money with only one charging station actually built.
Mark, it's also incredibly tone deaf to the economy right now. Repair costs for EVs, 56% more expensive than traditional vehicles. The purchase costs are often 50% higher. And you've got this mandate in California. I mean, I don't understand. I recently had repairs on my car, my traditional car, and it was so hard for us to have that unexpected repair cost. I mean, I don't understand the tone deafness in this economy of pushing these mandates that will require people to own these just much more expensive cars.
Well, they think they're actually saving the world, and that's part of the tone deaf. And the thing is, with these, what they're really doing is, you talk about China, dominance in America with their economy. This is the greatest dominance you could ever have. China has a monopoly on all the rare earth mining. It takes about 500,000 pounds of materials for each EV battery. And China is poised to be the global automaker. They're passing South Korea, the U.S. Global exports are up. EU is looking at tariffs. The more we go down this road of EV mandates, the more China is going to take over the global auto market. And that's what people don't realize. We're literally saying goodbye. And I drive a stick-shift Jeep. I'm not going to get an EV because they haven't come up with a way to do a stick-shift EV, a manual transmission. Until they do, I won't consider it.
Well, there you go. Well, listen, Mark, we got to leave it there. Thank you so very much for joining us today.
All right. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Julie.
That's Marc Morano from Climate Depot. We got so much more to get to.
He's cooler than I realized.
Yeah, listen, I get it. Someone may come up with a fake stick shift EV shifter thing because it's all fake. Right now we've got so much more to get to. It's 7:22 here on W. So we've got listen, we do have breaking news. We'll talk more about this later on in the show. We don't have a lot of time right now, but the judge has lifted the injunction. The removal of the reconciliation memorial at Arlington is going forward. We'll talk about that, but when we after the news, after weather, we're going to be talking with Karin Lips. She's the author of the book "You're Not Alone: The Conservative Women's Guide to College." It's 7:30 here on WMAL.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station.
Making sense of the news.
News Talk 105.9.
News now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It is 7:37 on News Talk 105.9 WMAL. We are making sense of the news. Happy Wednesday, everybody. 5 shopping days left until Christmas. Julie don't care. Julie's done, so she's got everything done. I'm still sort of working through. I got one more thing, Julie. One more thing I got to buy. We had it was sprung on us yesterday. We're buying small gifts for our siblings. Anyway, we'll talk more about that. We got so much more to get to on the show. Gordon Chang joining us in the next hour. Hans von Spakovsky. We're going to talk about Colorado moving to kick Trump off the ballot. But joining us right now is Karin Lips. She is a conservative author. The Conservative Woman's Guide to College. Karin, as someone who has 2 college-age daughters, I'm so glad you could join us today. Tell us about the book.
Well, thank you. And this book sounds like it would be perfect for your daughters. I wrote this book because I've been running a conservative women's organization focused on campuses for years called the Network of Enlightened Women, or NEW. And in that experience, I often talk with college students that face the same struggles, the same challenges. And so I thought, why don't I put the advice that I give these students into a book, give them some strategies and some tools so that they're better prepared to succeed on campus, academically and socially. And this will just be a great way to mentor even more young women and help them for what they're going to face on these campuses.
Karin, you've been such a great leader in trying to advise young women on college campuses. You've been doing this for a while. Over the years, have you found this is a problem, this sort of intimidation, the cancellation? Have you found this has become a bigger problem, or is it getting better? Are women finding more support? Kind of give us a sense of where we are right now.
Thanks, Julie. My sense is that the problem's becoming broader in that right now when a young woman goes to college, she faces unfair liberal professors, which we sometimes hear about in the news, but also biased administrators. A study came out that there's a 12-to-1 ratio of liberal to conservative administrators on campus, and those administrators have a lot of power, can do a lot to influence the experience of students. And then what I'm seeing is a growing trend among students that they want to censor each other. It used to be more we'd hear stories about the faculty, but now it's the students. We're now hearing more stories from women wanting to start chapters who go to their student government and their application to start a conservative women's club gets rejected by their peers.
Yeah.
At one school, they said it was because they already had a women's organization on campus, as if all, right? Like,
right.
As if all women's organizations think the same.
We all think the same, yeah.
Wow.
And so it's frustrating because these students seem to want to be the censors, and that's hard to fix because that's a cultural problem, and that then infuses their everyday lives from interactions with their roommates and dorm mates to the classroom. So that's where I think this book, You're Not Alone, The Conservative Woman's Guide to College, is helpful for students and then also for parents to help their students navigate these different challenges that they may face on campus.
We're talking with Karin Lips. She is the founder and president of the Network of Enlightened Women. Here's what I want to know. Are there going to be follow-on books? Is there going to be the Conservative Woman's Guide to Law School? Is there going to be a Conservative Woman's Guide to working at big law firms? You worked at Wiley Rain. I mean, that's a big firm. I mean, what's it like navigating law school and navigating the big firm life as a conservative woman?
I like the way you're thinking, Andrew, because we could see this book's having some success, so we could see some more follow-ons. And yes, as you mentioned, so I went to UVA Law School, and one of the things I'm fascinated with is that law schools, where one of the things you're supposed to be taught is how to think reasonably, are becoming widely liberal places where there isn't rational thought. I mean, we saw last year what happened at Stanford when they had a Fifth Circuit judge come to speak. Right. And it got shut down by the students. And even an administrator there kind of took over the podium And so I think law schools are really struggling right now. And you got to think it's not just what we're concerned about in terms of 3 years when students are in law school, but also, okay, what are we teaching all these future lawyers? Some of us lawyers, like to argue a little bit, but now you're teaching them you can't. There's no civil agreement, right? Like
right.
The other side is not just wrong, but they're evil or they shouldn't be heard. That's a real problem. So I think you're onto something that as conservative women, we face unique challenges, especially as kind of the woke progressive wing takes over institutions. And so we've got to be prepared for it and ready to fight back.
Karin, the book, of course, is The Conservative Woman's Guide to College. You're not alone, The Conservative Woman's Guide to College. The author is Karin Lips. She is the the founder and president of the Network of Enlightened Women. Karin, thank you so very much for joining us today.
Yes, thank you so much. And I'll get some copies to your daughters.
Please do. All right, I appreciate that. We've got so much more coming up. It's 7:43 on WMAL. Coming to town, delivered, listen, I can make a joke that he delivered an early Christmas present to the Democrats everywhere. It's not really an early Christmas present insofar as it just perpetuates the chaos. We've been talking about this all morning. The Colorado Supreme Court, or I should say 4 Democrat-affiliated members of the Colorado Supreme Court ruled to kick Donald Trump off the primary ballot in Colorado and presumably, I guess, the national election ballot should Donald Trump get the nomination. Lots of reactions from folks. Julie, Vivek Ramaswamy, listen, they're all reacting. I don't blame Vivek for reacting this way. Chris Christie, even RFK Jr., all horrified at this. Vivek, of course, having an over-the-top reaction to this. He pledges to withdraw from the Colorado primary ballot. Listen, the Colorado GOP is in of itself saying if this is allowed to stand, they will cancel their primary. Here's what Vivek Ramaswamy had to say.
They have just tried to bar President Trump from the Colorado ballot using an unconstitutional maneuver that is a bastardization of the 14th Amendment to our U.S. Constitution. This was a provision, Section 3, that was designed to bar Confederate members, people who switched to the Confederacy, from actually being able to serve. That's very different than what's at issue here, to say the least. This is a hollowed-out husk of what the country was built on. The basic principle that we, the people, select our leadership, not the unelected elite class in the back of palace halls. That's old world Europe, not the United States. That's why I'm making a pledge today that I will withdraw. I pledge to withdraw from the Colorado GOP primary ballot unless and until Trump's name is restored. And I demand that Ron DeSantis and Chris Christie and Nikki Haley do the same thing.
Got it. He's laid it out. We can end it there. We can end it there, Jeff. Listen, Hans von Spakovsky is going to join us at 8:35 to talk more about this. Julie, I think it was you who pointed out really the even more almost more important than this ruling that they kick him off the ballot is the codicil that also they will not count any write-in votes for this. That's super disturbing. I mean, in and of itself, right? Kicking a candidate off the ballot is disturbing enough, but saying you can't even voice your concern through a write-in ballot.
Yeah, it's completely contrary to. I like what Vivek said. It's leaving a husk of what our country was built on. Everybody loves to beat up on Vivek Ramaswamy, but I feel this level of anger too. And some people might call it a campaign strategy. He is campaigning against other people. He's also campaigning for second slot. So why not? Why not say, I call on the other candidates to withdraw? I mean, everybody's so outraged that Vivek, and they're calling him a kiss up and all this other stuff. But, this does demand some significant action on the part of all Republicans and those running, making a sort of symbolic statement like this or doing a symbolic action like this. Isn't it a totally outrageous reaction from Vivek?
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, here's the
outrageous thing is the Colorado Supreme Court doing this. So I'm always watching the news and people are so outraged by this or that, and I'm like, it's like this sort of ignoring of what's going on in the border. Can we focus on the really outrageous things in this country? Right,
and listen, even beyond the outrageous things, I mean, listen, there are things to cringe that Vivek has done, certainly. Sure. But you're right. it is a campaign. It is a campaign for president of the United States. Politics is about posturing, right? People posture during campaigns all the time. They say things, they try to keep their name out there. So Vivek happened to be first one to the press, right? It would have been great if Ron DeSantis had the forethought to get out there and say, you know something, I'm taking my name off the ballot if Trump's name is not restored to it. But he didn't. He said this. Chris Christie said, even though I don't like Donald Trump, this was a wrong thing to do. But you're absolutely correct in all of this. It is the Colorado Supreme Court doing this is the wrong thing to do. Vivek, he was not commenting on Vivek Ramaswamy. As I said, we're going to be joined by Hans von Spakovsky here. And let me underscore something that I said earlier. These Democrats on the Colorado Supreme Court know that this is not going to stand. They know this. And it's no great courage on their part, as David Frum points out, for them to go and do this. They know the Supreme Court's going to overturn it. That's what they want. They want all of this. They want Donald Trump to be the candidate. They want us to be talking about whether or not Donald Trump is eligible to run. Why? Right, Julie? Why? Because they know that Joe Biden can't run on his record. They know the Democrats can't run on their record, so they're making it all about this nonsensical insurrection 14th Amendment argument. Oh, and by the way, it's yet another thing that they can accuse the Supreme Court of being illegitimate over.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah. Well, listen, it's a great time to be a part of this process. Cal Thomas is correct. By the way, this is not the craziest part of the election. This election is going to get crazier and crazier and crazier until some kind of crazy finish, in which I think he's right. It's either going to end up in the Supreme Court or Congress or something else. By the way, we haven't even talked about this crazy movie Civil War, which is just nuts. But anyway, we'll get to that at some point. It is 7:52 here on